Hi everyone, join me today as we paint this cosmos flower in watercolor. Supplies for today: I have a palette of paints, a palette for mixing, tissue paper, eraser, spray bottle, water, and the brushes I'm going to be using are a Princeton Neptune round size 4 brush, a size 0 rigger brush, and a size 0 round brush. But really, if you had a medium-sized brush and maybe one thinner brush to do the detail work, that would be sufficient. The paper I'm using is Baohong 300 GSM 100% cotton paper. I buy it on a roll, and this has been cut to about an A5 size. I'm going to start with my pencil sketch already on the page. You can find the link to the free traceable sketch reference in the description box below. This tutorial and all of its sketches and pictures of the final sketch can be found on my Patreon channel. You can join as a free member and have access to all of these references and video. I'm just running a kneaded eraser over my pencil sketch just to lighten up the pencil lines. I really want them to just be a guide and don't really want them to show up through the painting at the end. So I'm just going to lift up the graphite as much as I can, just so that I can see the faint outline. Now I'm going to prepare my colors. I will start by spraying my paints to activate them. Last week I bought a new color here in my palette, which I think will be really nice for this project. It is Daniel Smith's Cobalt Violet. If you don't have a color like this, then you can use whatever you've got on your palette or mix something up. We really just want a pinkish purple, so you can play around with your mixes of reds and blues on your palette and see what you can make. I'm looking for a pinkish blue color, and then I'm going to make a slightly darker tint as well for the darker areas. This Cobalt Violet I thought would be so nice for flower projects like this, and it's lovely. I'm going to take some of that to the side here just to lighten it up to be my really light base color. So I want to make it majority water with just the smallest bit of pigment. That's great for the background color. Then I want to darken up a little bit for the darker areas. I probably don't need to do this now because I will do the darker colors in a later layer. But anyway, I'm just playing around with my colors. I'm going to add a spot of Cobalt Blue to that. See what that does. That's obviously way too much. Let me add some Cobalt Violet back again. I think that'll be nice for a darker area. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to work petal by petal, but I'm going to want to leave some white areas on each petal. So I need to work quite carefully. I could mask off the white areas if I wanted to, but I think that's just going to take too much time and isn't really necessary if I work carefully. So I'm going to move my paint dish around a little bit as I move around, but I'm going to work every second petal, and then I'll come through and work again the ones in between. I'm going to start with my much lighter color, and the areas that I've put the pencil lines down, I'll reserve that for my darker accent colors in later layers, so I'm happy to paint over those. But maybe in the areas in between I'm going to make some white accent areas. So I'm just going to move this to the other side for now. So let me work on this petal first. I'm using my number 4 Princeton round brush for this. It's got quite a nice sharp tip to it. So you'll see I'm keeping in sort of the same direction as the lines that I've made as reference. I've put that first area down. Now I'm going to leave the smallest little white line in between. I'm going to go over that area up there. Maybe what I'll actually do is get this darker color, and whilst it's still wet on the page, I'm going to drop this in towards the edges just to get a bit of a variation there. I'll do another white line over there, painting over the darker line. And maybe I'm going to go all the way to here for, we don't have to do white in between every single segment, so I'm going to go over both of those two darker lines, but I'm going to drop in the darker here along the edge. Then I'll leave another white area there. I'm just lifting a little bit here and helping it blend. So I'm going to work every second one. So I'm going to leave that one for now, do the same thing here, and so on. So I'm going to let some music play whilst I do every second one, and come back then when I come back to you when I get to the overlap area. Now that that first layer is completely dry, I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the second layer now. And in the areas where the petals overlap with each other, I am wanting the color to get a little bit darker in those areas. So I'm gladly going to paint the one layer over the other and hopefully get a darker area where that happens. So I'm just mixing up some more Cobalt Violet here. So on this one, I'll start right here at the area that they overlap, and just simply by the fact that we are putting an extra layer on top means that it is going to get darker. I'll drop in some of this darker color. It's got a little bit dry in my palette there. I'll drop that up at the top. I think let me just mix up some more of that before I carry on. I'm going to leave a little white line there. If the one area bleeds into the other like it has there, I might just come in with a white pen at the end or something just to whiten that up again. And then I'll drop this darker color in at the tips. I would like it a little bit darker in the area of overlap, so I'm going to pick up my Cobalt Violet in a thicker consistency and just drop that in over here. So I'm going to go around and repeat this process for the remaining 3 petals. am now going to move to my rigger brush, which is a very thin pointed long brush. It is able to hold quite a lot of paint in it, but its very fine point helps me to do the finer lines that I'm about to do now. There's two things I want to do in this layer. The first thing I want to do is add some darker lines in between here. And then in addition, I want to darken the areas of overlap. So it has darkened in some areas that we can see here, but I would like to define the edges a bit more for the areas of overlap there. So I'm going to take my rigger brush now. I'm going to pick up some of the Cobalt Violet. I don't want it to go too dark. I just want to see what that looks like. Maybe a bit darker than that. Alright, let's see how we go with that. So I want to follow that same direction of the lines that are already down. And I am going to do even darker lines. Maybe I'm actually even just, it's not showing up enough. I want to go a little bit darker already. Alright, let's see if that makes more of a difference. Yeah, I think that's better. So as I said, I'm going to follow the same direction of the lines that I've got down already. Now in this area of overlap, I'm going to pick up my number 4 brush again. Maybe I'll prepare just some Cobalt Violet over here. But I want to define the edges. So that petal that was starting here, I want to carry it on here. And just give that more of a clearer edge. What I'm going to do now is prepare a base layer for the inside of the flower. So I just want to do a color around which I can build the shadow colors. So I think I'll pick up some yellow ochre, and I'm not going to differentiate any of the circles in the center just yet. I'm just going to drop that in a light consistency. Maybe I'll pick up, let me take some Hansa yellow medium as well and mix that in. I don't want the color too intense because I was being so conservative with the color on the outside. I don't want this to blow the whole picture out. So I'm just lifting some of that color there and diluting it. And then let's do a base color on the stalk. I'm going to take some Sap Green. That's going to be a little bit too bright. So I'm going to take just a little bit of burnt umber just to tone down the green a bit. And that just makes it less bright. And also with a light consistency, just so that I can come in and do a shadow layer after. I'm going to put this color down. But again, that's already a little bit too intense. I'm going to water it down by adding some water to my brush. And then I'll pick up that green in the slightly thicker consistency, and I'm just going to run it down the left-hand side and let it blend in a little bit. But I'll come and add to this in an additional layer to give it a bit more of a three-dimensional look. And there would be a bit of shadow under here, so I'll just drop in a bit of extra there. Now I'm going to let those two areas dry before I come and add to them. I'm going to do some work around the center of the flower now. I want to work up a bit of contrast and definition. So I think I'll first pick up some Quinacridone Gold. I'll add it to this area here. I'll just tap it off my brush a little bit. I'm going to go around the bottom of most of the circles and just define the circular areas. That's given it a bit more definition. I think I'm going to move to a smaller brush now just to get some shadow into there. I've got my size 0 Winsor & Newton Cotman round brush here. I think I'm going to pick up some sepia in a fairly thick consistency. And with that, I want to put in some more contrast and shadow. So just sort of underneath and in between, I'm just going to break it all up with some shadow. I'm just feathering lightly with my brush, and I'm imagining that I'm going around the bottom half of each circle if the light were coming from the top. Adding this additional contrast just gives a bit more dimension to the whole thing. Alright, I don't want to overdo it. Now I want to do some shadowing down the left of the stalk. That's also a very thin area that I'm working in there. Let me prepare my color first. I will take my Sap Green, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of burnt umber to it. Let me make it a little bit greener than that. I'm going to leave that loaded on my small brush there and just put water down with my slightly wide brush. So I'm going to wet the whole stalk. I just want the water to be glistening but not pooling because I don't want the shadow color that I put down to spread the whole way across the stalk. I'd like it to just be on the left hand side and blending itself slightly to the right. So just check that your water isn't pooling anywhere on the surface of the paper. I'm also just spreading it so that it's nice and even. Alright, let's see how that goes. I'm going to take the more concentrated mix on this smaller brush, and I'm going to put it down the left hand side. And that's doing exactly what I want it to do. It's staying to the left, but it's also blending itself naturally a little bit to the right. But I need to just move quite quickly before it dries. Already here at the bottom it's drier than it was at the top. That's okay. I'll just rinse off my brush and help it blend. Maybe I'm just going to water this down a little bit and add a bit more to the bottom. And also there would be some shadow under here. I'm just going to pass this down the left hand side one more time. Rinse off my brush, and then I'm going to help it blend a little. And then with it having dried now, I think the last thing that I want to do is this overlap area. I would like to use a slightly darker shadow color just to accentuate the overlap area a bit more than I already have. I'm going to take Quinacridone Purple and just add it to my palette here. And then I'm going to do the overlap areas one more time. And then I'll just blend that. Yeah, I'm much happier with that look. And it's totally fine to build contrast like this in layers so that you control each layer and how dark you want to make each layer. And it's always easy to add more at the end than to take away something that you've already done. Every bit of support that my YouTube videos get help me to grow my channel. And supporting me doesn't have to cost you anything. If you are enjoying this video, please click the like button below. Let me know what you think in the comments, and also let me know the sorts of videos that you would like to see in the future. I would love to hear from you. I'm quite happy with this. I'm going to let it dry and decide if there's anything further I wish to add. And there's the final sketch. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit the like button. Until next time, bye for now.